As silly as it sounds, I just finished watching the new Snow White movie, and well, here's the thing. I'm convinced that the marketing for this movie was quite literally rage bait. Now, it's no secret that the Snow White film has sparked an immense level of controversy throughout social media over the last 2 years. I was actually one of the people that was quite instrumental in critiquing the way that the marketing for this film was actually being handled. From finding out that lips as red as blood, hair as black as ebony, skin as white as snow wasn't really what we were going to be getting, all the way to these horrible interview clips
with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
But ladies and gentlemen, today was the day to put up or shut up. The movie came out. I told people I'd give it a chance. I'd watch it so that they didn't have to, and that's exactly what I did. And I have notes. Okay, let's talk about the good. This movie was visually beautiful, but Disney never really has any issues there. The dwarves are fantastic. I love the dwarves here. CGI and all. The dwarves were great. Not much I would change there. Of course, with this being a live action movie, there's going to be some liberties that they take to attempt to improve the flow of the movie, which I believe that they absolutely did. For example, in the original, they spent about 85 minutes on one cleaning scene, not in this one. Now, that may be an exaggeration, but what's not an exaggeration is the fact that the original spent about 5 whole minutes, it was actually almost 10, showing us the dwarves washing their hands. In the original, the plot gets lost a lot. There's long drawn out scenes about minuscule events. I just want to clarify that I acknowledge that the year was 1937, and maybe these kinds of things were in fact entertaining in regards to animation of the time. And I know me attempting to hold these films to standards of today with my critiques may sound like if I was to critique a silent film for not giving the main character enough lines. However, I'm just observing the narrative differences between both of these films and how each one may attract the viewer's attention either negatively or positively. 5 minutes of singing, 5 minutes of sleeping, and this film, obviously with it being live action, did a better job at that. Another thing that this movie improved on was the level of how naive Snow White actually was. Because in the original, let's be honest, she's not that smart. In fact, quite unrealistically so. But then again, I can't really hold that against the original because it's very obvious that she lives in a high trust society. I mean, for God's sake, she walks into a random house and says, well, maybe if I clean for them, they'll just let me stay. I mean, this is obviously a young lady that hasn't been hearing stories about women getting mugged or assaulted at 3 a.m. But speaking of cleaning, now we can move on to things that I found, well, let's just say interesting. She doesn't clean. Yes, unlike the original, she waltzes into the dwarves' home, and instead of wanting to offer some sort of peace offering in exchange for her residing there, she just lays down. Next morning she gets up, she doesn't cook anything for them. Like in the original, she tells them, hey, how about you clean this house up? And they do. In the context of Snow White, I feel like that was a pretty important part of her character, and they just kind of took that part out. In the original, Snow had this motherly charm to her. I felt comforted by her presence. I was about to get up and go wash my hands when that scene came on. In this movie, she doesn't really have that. The huntsman was an idiot. In every rendition of Snow White that at least I've seen, the huntsman puts at least an animal heart in the box to kind of look as if it was a human heart, but instead he puts an apple in the box this time. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. Something else that I found quite intriguing, mid-movie, Doc actually goes on a rant about how the unfortunate circumstances of socioeconomics essentially forces people to steal and violate the rights of other innocent people. So that was interesting. And the way the queen gets defeated, it kind of sucks. Not to say that it didn't suck in the first movie, but if we're gonna go along with this idea that Snow White is some rebel who's leading this hostile takeover, then you need to truly commit to that. Instead, she just looks at the guards and says, hey guys, stop being mean. And they're like, okay. Now to the romance, which I know everybody who cares was waiting for, but I haven't spoken on it much because I was pleasantly surprised. I'm convinced that the marketing for this movie, or the incidental marketing for this movie, was quite literally rage bait. I mean, I was so worried that at one point I just thought that they weren't going to let her eat the apple because she's too smart to do such a thing. She said that she wasn't going to be saved by the prince. He saved her. She said that it wasn't going to be about her finding true love. Well, if it wasn't for true love, the movie would have been over. They even let him do this treacherously unconsensual act. And while there wasn't a prince per se, it felt as if the entire rhetoric behind this film was that Snow White don't need ain't no man.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
And yet in the theater, that's not what I saw expressed. Did they change some things? Who knows? But I am sure glad that they went the route that they did. I can kinda care a little bit less. It's just that overall, it seems like a different character than Snow White. Like, it feels like I'm watching a fantastical movie about Katniss Everdeen and not Snow White. One of these movies is about motherly love and how when you know, you just know, and how romantical love conquers all. And the other movie is about being kind to your royal subjects. Rachel Zegler is definitely still insufferable, but for what it's worth, the film did exceed my expectations. But that's not saying much because my expectations as a whole from the beginning were already resting in peace. Moral of the story, I'd save your money. You can watch it on Disney Plus if you want to know exactly what I'm talking about. I think that they may have changed a few things after a bit of backlash, and that's why the movie may have been delayed. But again, you can save your coins for Lilo and Stitch.